And thank you folks for trying over there to keep it going.
My wife was gonna get back again.
All right, we're on Roman numeral 4, new business discussion on alternative rodent control methods.
Right.
We're in the middle of that.
So I'll finish that up. I've got handouts that I will email to everyone after the session that talks about the technology and, you know, what the concept is behind it. I'm also happy to send the budget for the pilot to everybody, so you can take a look at that as well. We are within $1,000 of the amount necessary right now with his contribution and the contribution from a place called Hope. And I've been told that there's no problem getting the rest, and I would even put in my own money to
Okay.
make it happen. And then after the pilot happens, the cost will go down.
Okay,
Great.
So,
so we'll put it on for the next meeting so we can talk about it then. Wonderful, thanks.
Finalize it.
It's wonderful.
Cool.
Great.
Number 5, old business. Number 1 is the POCD subcommittee status.
Is that me again?
Yeah.
It is.
Tim, any progress on the paragraph that we talked about?
No, I owe you that.
Okay, because one of the things that we had talked about was a paragraph about conservation to be part of the P O C D written by Tim.
Okay.
Talking about what we've done in the course of the last year and a half. Positioning us with some of the, and I gave him a bulleted list of things that I think are noteworthy. Yeah, we should put that in. And the P O C D committee's been responsive to our questions and asks. I've got a bunch of additional asks that I don't want them attacking me, so I'm not asking them until they have the public meetings, and which are going to be coming. There will be public meetings happening. So I think we're pretty good. We've gotten some movement and we're trying to get it done. So public sessions are coming up next.
That's great. Number 2, South Pine Creek Open Space Tide Gate Replacement Project status.
Just informational, letting everyone know that the lowest, or the winning bidder has been selected, should be announced tomorrow by the department. That is going to take off pretty quickly. We'll also be going before Board of Selectmen and then Board of Finance and RTM beginning next week with the Board of Selectmen requesting another $2 million to fund that project in addition to the existing approved 2.25 million that was approved. That was FY23. So the project is significantly more due to the time it's taken to get to this point for many reasons, including inflation, obviously. The project scope stays relatively the same. That includes some contingencies, wildlife biologists related to owl roosting and diamondback terrapin nesting. Army Corps of Engineers took 15 months to get their permit. State Historic Preservation Office took a long time, and this all started in 2018, 19 before I got here. So over the course of 5+ years, you know, costs have gone up significantly. That will happen. There's restrictions for in-water work that were established by the regulators. But and if anyone recalls, this is on South Pine Creek where the historic railroad bridge is scheduled for this project to be relocated and restored. There'll be a mock-up close to the parking lot of a historic bridge with the 2 existing trusses from the 1800s. Awesome. And that was part of the SHPO requirement. But just to inform the commission that that project is moving forward, and instead of 3 tubes, we'll have 5 to accommodate for climate change, sea level rise, give us the extra capacity during intense storms to not only control floodwaters and the ocean coming in, but also give, you know, the ability to drain the marshes in anticipation of a storm or after a storm to drain. So ecological health and the flood control aspect.
Improve their function. It's a great path to follow.
It is, yeah, definitely a lot.
All right. Numeral 6, open space land acquisitions. Number 1 is continued, 16. And
This one.
which one?
2190.
Oh, I'm sorry. 2190, Roman numeral 5, old business number 3, 2190 Post Road easement informational discussion.
That easement is in the works with various boards. I included my memo to PPP Director Wentz dated August 12th. And that just outlines my thoughts and professional opinion on the parcel, how that could or should be managed in the event that it's decided will be an easement in the sense of conservation, with conservation in mind, I should say. But as it relates to a public access easement, if everyone recalls, this is would be the westernmost parcel portion of the parcel where the former Exide factory was, underwent significant remediation in the past as sheet piling, but the intent would be to allow public access in some way that's getting worked out. Mr. Chanel is here. Sure. If you want to entertain anything.
No, as Tim said,
Saying-
it's very accurate. The two attorneys, the attorney for Portia Fairfield.
Sorry, can you,
Oh, I'm sorry, Mike Chanella, the owner of the property at 2190 Post Road. And the attorney for Portia Fairfield is working together with the town attorney, and they've passed the easement. I has had a chance, I think, Tim, to review it. And they're just deciding as to who the town wants to take it, whether it be the Conservation Commission or something else. But yeah, I think that should be worked out very shortly. And I think that Tim's memo is spot on. It's
thank you.
it's something that we're ready to transact.
And really the purpose was because it might end up under the commission's purview, so just wanted to make everyone aware.
Probably most appropriate under that purview, huh?
It is, there's no inland wetlands on the parcel. That section of Mill River is considered tidal. But if in our purview, or I guess general purview, riparian buffer and protection would still still interest the department and the commission.
Very nice. Thank you. Thank you very much. Commissioner, any questions? All right. Now we're moving on to Roman 6 open space positions, number 1. Page 1, 6, and 7, 9, 8.
Status of this acquisition, future home of the Fairfield Environmental Science Education Station, is that the tank was, since our last meeting and last update, the tank has been removed. It was clean. We have clean confirmation of clean soil. I was on site during the whole process, so we can breathe a sigh of relief that there was no release over its time in the ground. This working with the town attorney closing right now. I believe we're looking at the end of the month or shortly thereafter to take ownership of both parcels. And I'm working with other departments to start laying out the next steps, which include a connection to sewer, looking at heating and cooling, moving some utility poles near the road to allow for buses to get in and out, certain things like that. So we are moving forward, and I think everyone's pretty excited.
It's very exciting.
Kind of jumping out of her seat.
Can you tell me, what is the official name of it going to be again?
I don't have that yet.
What are you-
but
what
it-
were you
but it will
referring
be
to?
Trying to work on a quirky acronym for it, but it will be something to the effect of Environmental Science Education Station or lab or something like that. So
SpongeBob.
Maybe we can put it as a, well, I don't know, as a contest or something?
Yeah, between all of us
Now if I name it after myself, is that gonna work?
That won't work. They did.
I don't think so.
And they came up-
Somebody's getting shot down here.
Somehow.
All right.
Yes, yes, feces, that's not gonna work.
Nice. I think Pete's Place is good enough.
I like it.
All right, moving on to open space land acquisitions, number 2, 140 Limerick Road donation. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
This, the department was approached by the town attorney. We received the request to donate this parcel. It's about an acre and a half or so inland wetlands, landlocked, at 140 Limerick, except there are 2 points of access from 2 cul-de-sacs adjacent to the east. I insinuated that we would be interested in this parcel and would accept a donation for for the purpose of inland wetland protection.
All right, so this was just directly to the town attorney and then to you? That's the only, okay, so
I had no contact
okay,
or
and neither have I. I'm gonna state for the record that Chris Kalitzos is a family friend, which I haven't seen, my parents' friend, haven't seen in over 20 years, just down in Virginia. So if we were to vote on anything to accept it, I'm gonna recuse myself. Although I have no contact with him for over 20 years, I think that's what I'm gonna do. So, I don't know. I don't, is it something that the town attorney wants us to do or?
he suggested
That we
do a
vote?
if this proceeds through other.
So I'm gonna recuse myself and have Dabney be the chair for this vote. Okay?
Can I ask him, are there any deficiencies with the property, anything to be aware of?
At first glance, no. Several parcels abut it, so you have backyards from both sides. It's kind of triangle shaped. But there is access, to the public from two points. So, I mean, it's really locked in, but there's still 2 ways to get in. I think we'll have to deal with initially deal with some encroachments. Fences and probably mowing from backyards that just slowly creep in, but
It's like there's a little waterway there, like a stream or something.
yeah, I believe there's a water course.
Is the water course, is that in that parcel?
I think so.
Oh, nice.
Do you know the property, Dabney?
I do know the property.
Any,
yeah.
any reason why we shouldn't be involved with it?
I don't think so. No, that's actually, that street is really cute and it's a nice little, I think it would be a nice little property. So is it something we have to vote on?
Yes, if
Okay.
the commission is willing to.
Do we have a
I'll make
motion?
That we accept the property.
Yeah.
Presented to us.
Okay, so do you want to make a motion to accept the property as presented to us? Peter, second, all in favor? All right, any opposed? No? All right, good. Come back. He's not gonna come back.
Oh, I think they're done with the vote.
Yeah.
You're no longer chair.
That's
Right.
Thank God.
Okay.
Thank you. Building communications, number 1, fiscal year 2024 inland wetlands permitting review summary. Tim.
Since the fiscal year has ended as of June 30th. July, I thought it was to the commission know as the commission acting as the agency. Just a summary of revenue over the past 5 years. I included a graph that revenue is strictly inland wetland permits. And it just shows the trend line is slightly increasing over that time period. But what's important to know is that this occurred during COVID. So you'll see the frequent fluctuations up and downs. And as I go before Board of Finance and RTM and Board of Selectmen with having these fiscal discussions, it's something I always explain that there's no crystal ball or prediction tool that can explain why, 100 more people that year put in pools, or why no one did any commercial development at higher costs. So it was just the timing, and I wanted the commission to be aware of.
Okay. Commissioners, any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. Number 2, Conservation Commission attendance at Land Acquisition Commission's July 16, 2024 meeting.
I attended, also Peter attended, and Tim, of course.
Okay.
So we had a good conversation. I had thoughts about, how we could better communicate, which I suggested to them when they make a recommendation that they give it to us in detail rather than just writing a letter saying, we recommend you purchase this property, which is basically what they did on the last recommendation that you all voted down.
Okay.
And they seem to understand that. I also recommended that if they were to make a recommendation, that it would be a good idea for them to come to the meeting where we're going to vote on it. And they can make a presentation or not. But the benefit of that would be that if anybody had any questions, then they would be there to answer the questions. So, they seem to accept that, and we had a good conversation.
Okay, that's great. Thank you for taking that task on.
Good to, it
chose
also
the
was
right person.
beneficial to meet and
Yes.
see.
Thank
to
you,
see.
Diane.
They were very happy.
Yeah.
We were there.
Yeah, I think it's a good, I don't know if we're gonna go back at some
Well,
point.
I'd like to
but
go to the
it's-
next one at least to kind of show them, it's like, look, this is not a one-off.
Yeah, it really should be a collaboration, I think. And
I think that might have been the point.
rather than us voting on something at the very end of all the work that they're doing, they could get input from us before that.
And we get input from them in much more detail.
Right.
And I hear anecdotally people wanting us to be setting aside more land to preserve,
Yeah.
just like everybody. That's
Yeah.
so.
So 5 from where? Where are we getting it from?
I'll give you an opportunity.
You turning over your backyard?
My meadow, the meadow of my backyard.
Any questions, comments, commissioners? Nope. Moving on. Number 3 is PA-143 memorandum issuance.
Just the, us following the state's regulations on lighting of state buildings in Fairfield, will apply the same thing to our own. So first selectman's got it, so we'll see what happens with it.
Okay. Very good.
All right.
So now we're moving on to Roman numeral 8, legal enforcement actions. Number 1 is 680 Old Academy Road. Encroachment damages into conservation easement. Hello. Ourselves.
Yes.
And you can.
I'm Sarah Sharp. I'm a lawyer at Hurwitz, Sagrin, Salzburg and Nuff with address 135 Broad Street. I'm here on behalf of the property owners at 680 Old Academy Road, MK 2024 Family Home LLC. We've been before you on a couple of occasions in the past year. Wetlands Agency, you'll recall this stemmed from a violation that was issued in June. And we were here before you at a show cause hearing and at the receipt of our petitions for declaratory ruling and for the inland wetlands permit that we discussed at the earlier meeting in August. The agenda item tonight is under the enforcement action, but there is a request before you for an organic orchard use in the easement area that we submitted last month, I believe July 26th. And that is what I want to take you through today, and just want to briefly orient you with the history of these conservation easements. I have them up on the screen. I know that you received these materials as well. There are two conservation easements on the property. They were recorded in 1997 in response to a violation that occurred in 1996 by the property owner at the time. And I just want to explain this briefly because I think it sort of makes sense why the property is what it is today. The violation in 96 was following several violations and corrective actions by the property owner at that time. Last name Bodner. Those occurred between 1982 and 96. There were filling of intermittent water courses, filling of wetlands, construction in the wetlands, clear cutting of the wetlands, and filling and grading in the wetlands, and a diesel fuel contamination. So this was a very disturbed property. And then in 1996, there was this construction of this man-made, what the violation called a goldfish pond without a permit. And the commission allowed the owner to submit an inland wetlands application to, and an attempt for them to keep the goldfish pond with corrective measures and mitigations to the wetlands areas that had been disturbed. And based on what we uncovered at the property in the spring, I don't think that those corrective measures were really ever fully executed. The permit that was approved in 1997 required restoration plantings and removal of the irrigation spigots, and then the installation of this conservation easement, I think, to really try to keep this property owner from doing more damage to the property after so many really decades of actions where they've been told that this shouldn't be occurring. And when the property in June and we stopped all activities there, Marissa was immediately on the phone calling and got in touch with our office, and that's when we found the conservation easement and walked her through the implications of that. And since then, we've just been trying to, do the right thing. And yeah.
Stop you there just for, you just said it was only then that you found the conservation. Attorney?
No, yeah.
Okay. That's fine. Fine. Yep.
Important to note that in the closing documentation, there were hundreds on this property, hundreds of pieces of literature that, because of all these.
It would actually be on one document called the warranty deed. That warranty deed would have a subject to listing with numbers, and in those numbers would have something that would identify the conservation easements.
So what we uncovered in the property in the spring, which we removed a significant amount of invasive vegetation on the property, and we found what I will show you. It's just a couple of examples, but there was a significant amount of metal debris, these spigots that were still on the property that were to have been removed as part of the violation. And this is just a small sampling. This was underneath all of the invasive vegetation, which is what makes us believe that, perhaps the original corrections weren't really done. The property owner Bodner owned this parcel for another 17 to 18 years after that 1997 violation.
Just really quickly, to perspective on that, because it's kind of near and dear to my heart. It's really important. These metal pipes were sticking up out of the ground. They stretched from what is now being called all the way up. These spigots were located here, so And I don't even know how many feet that is, but we are talking about hundreds of feet. Piping, some under the ground, a lot of sticking up because of erosion. Really dangerous stuff that we spent a lot of time removing.
Can you state your name and address?
I'm sorry, Marissa Matthews.
I'm gonna turn it over to you. No, you're good. You're good. That's helpful. These are a couple of pictures like we happen to have from before we started doing work on the property of the trees being overgrown by these invasive vines and the invasive species in the conservation easement areas. And then we have Marissa and Tara Vicenta, our landscape. What I talked to you about the history, I think the highly disturbed nature of the property may be more susceptible to the level of invasives. And of course, in 1997, when the conservation easement was put in place, we had no way to predict the invasive species problem that we have today. It wasn't the significant concern, and so there was no provision in the easement itself to allow the removal of invasives. What the conservation easement does allow, and what I'll speak to at the end, is that it retain the right as the Conservation Commission to approve other uses and other activities as appropriate. And I think that that is to allow for changing conditions. You can't predict the future. And unlike some conservation easements that you would have to do an amendment in order to do any other activities, or just don't allow for any amendment whatsoever, this easement actually, you retain the right to approve additional uses as might be appropriate to the purpose here. And with that, I will introduce Marissa Matthews, one of our property owners, to speak about the organic orchard. And then we have, like I said, Tara Vicenta here, our landscape architect with Artemis Landscaping, and Bill Kenny, our wetland scientist with William Kenny Associates. So with that, Marissa, please introduce yourself.
Hi, Marissa Matthews, one of the homeowners. Just a little bit about kind of me and the goal that we were trying to accomplish. So since 2015, we ran an organic vegetable farm that includes some fruit production as well, 65 goats, over 1,000 chickens. It was a big farm in Connecticut, and it was open to the public. Started in 2015, it was full production right up until COVID, where we had a few snags. And then luckily, farms were one of those things that maintained being open during COVID. So on a typical Saturday, we actually had 1,000 customers. That wasn't unusual. They would walk on the property, bring their soccer chairs, sometimes even listen to live music. It was kind of a respite during COVID. During that time, one of our younger children, we have 4, was diagnosed with some limitations, and his school closed down. So we decided to sell the farm and move in search of a school for him, and we found that in Fairfield County. So we sold Deep River Farms, at least the land anyway, and we moved to Fairfield County, and we searched for a property that we could do farming on, albeit not at the scale, because Fairfield County, you can't really find the 65 acres, just, so we found this one. And honestly, when we closed on it, we focused a lot on some concerning things during closing, which was this massive oil spill. It's a multi-million-dollar thing. It was, we read through it, and quite frankly, now that I sit here today, knowing how this has turned out, we were distracted by all those things, and we did not see the conservation easement and exactly what an easement meant. I know what inland wetlands is, and I know what conservation is, but I didn't notice it. And with all my farming experience, usually farming is considered, especially done in an organic way, and a restorative way, very in line with conservation. So what I immediately started doing is restoring the property. First, removing all of the metal, which there was tons of it. I took 6 dumpsters of metal out of the property. There was tons of downed trees. So this wasn't an environment where trees and natural local plant life was thriving. It actually was being taken over by porcelainberry, and Japanese knotweed, which for any farmer is like your worst enemy, especially in New England. So we started clearing it. We started really cleaning it up, removing the metal, removing all the junk. There was lots of other things in there, and then removing the downed trees, right? As you saw from the pictures, they were broken over, downed. We started chopping them up, moving them, chipping them, cutting them up. And then, like Sarah had mentioned, in June, I was alerted that it wasn't just an inland wetland for farming. I had to request a permit for that, and we had a conservation easement situation that I was unaware of. So with my ignorance, I apologize, had no idea. So when we came, we said we were going to propose a plan on what our intentions were on paper. We already had that plan sketched out, but I wanted to put something together for you all so you could actually see the size and scope of what we were trying to do. The idea is a permaculture. This is kind of set up in sections as a monoculture, but we have to see what the land is going to give us and what I can grow in this area. It is a sloped area, awesome for an orchard, actually. And much of it now is covered by what I would call, some people call it a lawn, I call it a green mulch. It is a mixed seed. We plan to keep that. This part is very important. We do farming and orchards a little bit different than most. We don't use harmful chemicals. And I do have a real large significant wetland that sits right below the grade of our property. So that's really important to me not to dump a bunch of chemicals into the wetland. If you go to your standard, typical, conventional, I'll call it orchard today, especially in Connecticut, and you're picking with your children, your apples, and you're standing underneath the tree, you're standing on dirt. And you kind of wonder, like, why is nothing growing there? And the reason why nothing is growing there is not because of the tree cover. It's because there's probably a gentleman with a backpack that just sprayed a whole bunch of chemicals on your root system of that tree. That is not what we do. I respect that that is how orchards and farming have evolved over the years. But for us, it's important to us, especially with my son who has an autoimmune disease, that we don't use things like that. So what I'm going to do is use a green mulch, which is essentially a seeded mix. I'm going to grow that right up to the tree stump. I cannot do that on day one because I won't be able to tell the difference between that growth and the tree. I will have to maintain it to a certain height so that I control mushrooms, fungus, I control bacteria, I control non-beneficial insects, I control predators. All those things I do have to control in order to grow a product, a viable product that can be sold at the farmers markets, etc. But I don't view it as something I'm going to fertilize with harmful chemicals or pesticides. I'm not going to use those. So it's even more important when doing farming or an orchard in a regenerative way that I am given the ability to mechanically maintain the property. Because if I can't do that, then my final resort is a chemical, and I really don't want to do that for the reasons that I mentioned. So, I take any questions, but I wanted to kind of give you an idea. I know you might have questions, especially around the easements and, what we're going to be doing in the easements. Our main goal is set it up. We have the privilege of being to set it up naturally, so that I have to touch it as little amount of times over the life cycle of the orchard. If I don't have to go in there and spray it with something, I've won. If I don't have to go in there and mow as much because I set it up in a very diverse way, I've won, right? So that's kind of the goal. So anyway, I just wanted to give that quick overview. If you guys have any questions, happy to answer.
Commissioners, any questions?
I have a couple of
I have
questions.
a comment. I don't have a question.
Questions first.
This may or may not be relevant, but how do you plan on keeping bears out of your orchard?
I haven't seen a bear yet, but
I'm your neighbor around the corner.
yeah.
Down on Vernon Hill, we have a lot of bears in Greenfield Hill, and they love pear trees
Cool.
and apple trees.
Bears and you have deer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for my first very natural answer, my knee-jerk answer is I don't know if I want to keep bears off my property. I kind of like them. They don't scare me. My wife's from upstate New York in the Adirondacks.
We don't have a bear mitigation.
All but lives with theirs. That's my knee-jerk reaction. Hey, if anything becomes like a problem, what I'm going to do is probably partner with the town first. Look, I have giant bear in my yard. What do you think the best thing we should do to take care of it? But
Well, you're gonna, if you have the bear, bear and deer, so you're gonna have to put some kind of fence up to keep them out. The deer will destroy this in about 15 minutes.
Well, and the bears will just keep coming back.
Yeah, and they do a lot of
And I
damage.
only say that because I would hate for you to go to all this trouble only for one bear to come back every single night and eat every single apple and every single pear. So it's just something to consider. I'm also just curious, why an orchard? What is is it, you guys just love farming? Why not something else like vegetables?
so it's not the soil type for vegetables, because, you know, we ran 12 tilled acres at our last farm. It's just not the soil type. I would have to make so many amendments. And like I said, I want to do less to create more, not more. I don't want to, you know, say, hey, I have to amend the soil to a pH type of X to grow a tomato. Here, that would be a significant change to the soil type. And I would have to do a whole lot of work. It's actually a perfect soil type for an orchard. It is also a perfect sun facing and well drained. The slope is perfect for well drained.
Yeah, and
Just introduce yourself.
yeah, I will. Kelly Angelini, and I'm the other co-owner. My wife and I would like to install this orchard. Our previous farm, we did a lot of work at the community level with school backpack programs, food banks. And our philosophy is that kind of a no apple left behind. So our plan is to be able to harvest these apples, bring them into the community for farmers markets, also food banks. In fact, you know, if you have some ideas on that and the needs, we are new to this community, and apples are very nutritious, abundant. They stay longer than vegetables do. We had some early learnings on that, and people prefer them in food bank. And they're just sort of easy to deal with. You don't have the mold and the rot and a lot of the things that you do with vegetables that we learned. So we ended up installing a kitchen and cooked off some of those and froze them and then brought them out to the pantries as part of that. So it is definitely a very significant portion of our commitment to do that as well.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions, commissioners?
Well, I did want to just note that the wetland areas aren't very well drained. They're somewhat poorly drained, by definition poorly drained. So that's an issue that you'll have to deal with.
I was just wondering if you're going for a certified organic label.
Yeah, 7 years from now, I'll let you know if I got it. It's not ready for that yet, but yes, yeah, of course, that would be great. Yeah.
We look to also employ regenerative farming practices. And in fact, research would suggest we could be the first regenerative farm in Fairfield. So definitely the first regenerative farm.
Regenerative farm.
That's right. We do have a lot of
That for the-
property to answer the deer question, so I'm gonna let nature
It's
take
the
it
deer
first
are-
there, yeah.
The problem I have with fences is you're channeling them into a smaller and smaller space and they're becoming more and more concentrated, and it just exacerbates the problem.
Yeah.
With the fence.
Yeah, I mean, our 65-acre farm did not have any fences. The 12 acres that were tilled, I did not fence. There are other ways that unless you're interested, I won't bore you with attracting the beneficial insects and deterring the non-beneficial insects and animals. So we have no snakes on this property. There should be tons of snakes. It's weird. We have a river, we have a wetland, and no snakes. So we're gonna put a biotope up and get some snakes, and then it handles your rat and mice problem. So it's just a small example, but we have lots of farming tricks like that.
Any other questions or comments, commissioners of the applicant?
Well, I have a comment. It's not really a question. I'm really very troubled by this. have a lot of experience with the farming. You said 1,000 customers a day. I simply, since we're here, my understanding is we need to make a decision on whether we're going to allow you to trespass on the easement. And I simply don't find it believable that he would not have been aware of the easements. I cannot accept that. It makes no sense to me, especially in a property like this, which is pretty significant. You're making it sound like there were no lawyers involved that would have pointed you. And I'm only speaking for myself. And the organic nature of it is of no interest to me. That has no relevance to the question about letting you trespass on the easement. I don't care. So I'm just telling you where I'm coming from. I have a real difficulty with that because I think you're coming in, and I don't want to use words like disingenuous, but that's what I feel.
Yeah, I
So
mean,
I would open you, we have to come into these things without prejudgment. But if you feel that I'm making a prejudgment and I'm stuck, you can ask me to recuse, but I feel very strongly that I can't accept you.
No, because it's on the record, right? So you bought the property. You presumably had counsel, when you bought the property. That's between you and your counsel. But it's also a public record. It's recorded on the land records. So anybody, anywhere can go and search anybody's land. And you would have been able to find the easement here.
True.
So as Commissioner Hood said, now the question for us really is, and I'll start by saying, I'd like to commend you for trying to do this, trying to do the farm, it's less and less people do it, and you especially with the organic nature of it. But it is a easement question now. It's the Conservation Commission in its purview some years ago, put this easement on land in two parts, Part B and Part A. And that's the question that I have is, to what degree does the dominant estate have control over the servient estate? I should also say for the record, I'm an attorney, I'm a real estate attorney, and I have some experience in easements. And the conservation easement that I'm reading that's attached to our packet, the one that's at volume 1711 page 85, it's got certain language in there, but ultimately it has this one phrase that says, the intent of this conservation easement is to maintain the easement area in perpetuity in its natural, undisturbed, and undeveloped condition. Then it has the language that your counsel pointed out is, unless otherwise approved by the Conservation Commission for wildlife, natural resource enhancement purposes, or other purposes. The other purposes is where you're hanging your hat on.
That's correct. I mean, that's what we're requesting, and we're not hiding from that.
Right.
Ultimately, the question before the commission is whether they want to maintain the status quo and let it revert to what it will become, which regardless of any native plantings that might occur here, it will revert to being overrun with invasives, because that is the extent that is on the property now. And with porcelainberry and the rhizome type of plants that are here, there's no natives that are going to outrun that problem. So ultimately, the trees that are there will be overcome, and they were being overcome by those vines and plants, and the intermittent water course is clogged, and it's causing trees along the edge of the property, which is just on the other side of our property line, that still has the significant amount of invasives. Trees are being uprooted, and it's causing erosion downstream. So if we allow, if we can, that's one option. And the option that we're requesting is to allow this property to be managed in a sustainable and thoughtful way that will allow reestablishing native plantings along the water course. It will allow a native seed mix on the lawn, and it will allow an organic farm to be established. And the language of the easement, because there is an easement here and it's not an inland wetlands question where it's just an agricultural use, you can restrict this to the organic farming methods that we're talking about. If you're approving it under the other purposes, it can be this all organic manner that we're talking about, not just wholesale any agriculture for us or any other future landowner. So ultimately, that is the question, whether you want to go back to what it was or if you want to do it in a different way. So I do think that there's a conservation benefit here. I think that there is a biodiversity and natural resource benefit here. It is a living document that allows us to change with the time. In 1997, we did not know that we would have this invasive porcelain berry problem that we have today.
I
So,
don't know if that's quite true, but
well, the extent that it is.
you know, to get.
Commissioner Fain, hold on, because Commissioner Boucher
You know,
wanted to say something.
When I see it, as you're asking for the opportunity to run a for-profit business in a conservation easement area. That's what it boils down to, in my mind. There are two existing conservation easements on the property. And it's not a not-for-profit, it's not a 501c3. It's a for-profit business who hope to operate out of that. To ask this commission to allow businesses to be profitable out of conservation easements, very first for us.
I just want to make it clear, it's one easement that has two areas, so.
Excuse me.
Right.
And I would even add to that, that it's not necessarily your activities that would be a concern. We also have to take into consideration future activity. If you were to sell the farm to someone else, let's say you didn't have a pick your own, or, you know, it was a nonprofit, it wasn't commercial, it wasn't a commercial business, you may sell it to someone who has that intent. And once these trees and these plants are planted, it would take a long time for it to revert back to its natural state. So that's also my concern.
These are super good points. I would love to comment towards them.
I'll just,
Sure. And I'm-
If I can, okay.
I would just add that you're also asking to incorporate us just walking away from the NOV like it didn't exist.
Well, we're not here on that.
Okay.
So, yeah.
I mean, the notice of violation.
But what you're telling me is that it's gonna be nice, and we're gonna do conservation. It's all gonna be wonderful. So we're just gonna turn our back on how we got here in the first place. And I'm very uncomfortable with that. In addition to with other comments.
Yeah.
I can't, you're asking me to incorporate that into the decision to allow you to, you know, trespass an easement. That's really troubling.
So can,
Commissioner Fain, you were, no,
So, you know, I think these are all good points. The only point that I wanted to make, at this point, I have other points I'll make as we go along. All land is managed, even if you don't do anything, that's a type of management. So, say that we don't want this managed to let the invasive species grow back is not, I don't think our objective here. I think that we're looking at trying to balance some of the things that you want to do with some of the intention of the easement. I think there's probably some hybrid or compromiser that can be worked out that would address both of those.
Commissioner Fain, can you identify what you do also, just for the
I'm
record?
Jay Fain, and I'm an environmental wetland scientist, soil sciences and environmental consultant.
I would like to just add one other thing, and that is that Greenfield Hill has a long history and tradition of farming. And I always love to see properties that were once upon a time were part of a farm that then went to a strictly residential use, reverted back to a farm. I'm just not sure that this is the appropriate property to do that. Having said that, there is a farm not too far from you guys that was in a very similar situation. Was that 8 years ago? Little River Farm on Pine Hill Road. And they have a water course running through wetlands and
You will have, you know, it's always gonna be a battle here, because you're right, all your neighbors have an invasive species forest around you, so it's gonna be always trying to come back in.
Well, invasives, if you don't plant something that's not invasive, after you pull the invasive out, they're gonna come right back.
Well, they're,
I mean, that's the nature of the beast, and you're planting native plants in the trees and what's going into the orchard. My only comment, I'm not voting on this, but my only comment is, stuff happened pretty quick. You bought the property in April, you cleaned it up in May, and we found the violation in June. It's like, wow, 30-day cycles for all this to happen. I appreciate what you want to do. I think it's awesome. I tend to come down on Commissioner Fain's side, is there's some modification of what you plant and how you plant it that might mitigate some of the concerns of some of the members of this commission. That's just my thinking on it, or that's my comment with respect to that. But I do appreciate your approach and what you're trying to do. And I applaud that. I wish there was more like this.
Commissioner? Yes, ma'am. Did you want to?
Yeah, so, I just wanted to say that, I think our ignorance around the conservation easement, I think it's important to note that when we were really starting to clean things up, this wasn't an area where you would look at it and it was marked or looked like something that was being conserved. It was a metal dump. And so my ignorance was also fed by the fact that it was a metal dump and I was cleaning it up. And that is where clearly I went wrong. But if I had known and I had the awareness, gosh, I would have never done that. Like, absolutely never done that.
If I can add
I think that's ridiculous.
just so
Sure, it's okay. Yes, Council.
there is part of the 1997 violation correction, there was to be some sort of delineation of a stone wall around the conservation easement area. That was never put in place. It's not in the easement language, it's in the actual minutes of the Conservation Commission's decision. That wasn't put in place, so it isn't obvious. The fact that this was done without recognizing the importance is not an excuse, and so we understand that that has no bearing on your decision. So one other thing, your comment about, a future landowner could be pick your own or a more intensive use. I mean, that is the beauty of this being something specific that is being approved under the conservation easement, is that it could be limited to no pick your own. We could work with the town attorney to make the language really specific, so that it is exactly what you're comfortable with, and that any future landowner, if they wanted to do more, they would have to come before you again, or you would be, well within your rights to bring an enforcement action in Superior Court. The other question I had about maybe there's some compromise and what changes you might see, if we could hear from you about what those changes might be that we could consider, that would be really helpful.
Yeah. And I'll also say this, you had a lovely point about, making a profit business off of conservation easement. And so I don't know if any modern day farmers and farming for money. It's a pretty bad business plan if you are. Money isn't our objective here. This is our passion. Land is also our passion too. Soil health is our passion too. That's why we do this, not because of money. So we would be totally open to a different structure. Absolutely. We even think about it.
We never made a
absolutely.
penny on our farm before.
No.
We spent 2 years on land conservation.
And I'd be happy to send our tax documents over to show you that.
But I appreciate the point. It's a very, very good one. And perception is important as well, and is the responsibility of you all to manage that in such a gorgeous town that we've moved into. So I very much appreciate that, and it could easily be structured into a nonprofit for sure. No problem whatsoever. And it is our negligence that we missed the area of this conservation. That is truthful. I am attesting to that as well. I signed the closing documents. This was a property that was transacted outside of the MLS stuff. and it was private, and we missed it. Our attorney did her due diligence, we missed it. And we understand the ramifications, the right to farm is different in different towns.
Where I fall down on it, more on the legal side, the commissioners have their point of view. Our town council wasn't invited to be here. He couldn't make it. So for my purposes, I want him to look at your memo, at conservation easement. I want him to look at all that stuff, but he couldn't do it between last week and this week. So this will definitely be continued to the next meeting. And then that might also give us time to think about what you were, contemplating, what we might be contemplating.
I could give a little bit
Yeah,
of feedback.
please.
I thought about this a little bit. And Phil, I don't know if you want to jump in. If you look at Greenfield Hill in the olden days where it became, just houses, there were a lot of gentleman farms. There were a lot of meadows, there were a lot of hedgerows. Almost all the hedgerows are gone now. So incorporating a hedgerow or into the design, I think would be really cool. And the wildlife habitat, pollinator, some of the areas like we talked about, the one of that area, the wetlands is really wet and probably not gonna be great for growing trees. So instead of maybe putting trees in there, maybe do like a wet meadow habitat. Enhance the some of the other habitat areas for bluebirds, put up bluebird boxes, try to balance it out a little bit more rather than just have the total mono farm.
Enhance the appeal.
I think that could be a win-win if it was, if it was done correctly. Those are the kind of things I'm looking at. I think, you have that giant lawn too. Maybe you could retract some of that and use some of that as orchard area, or even, I think that giant lawn could even be row crops and some of that too.
So just like.
That was my question, whether you could just stay out of the easement.
So,
And
yeah,
you
this
know,
is not
further
the
down.
total orchard. We really focused on the area that you guys needed to really review. This is the first 3-year plan. But it's actually the entire property, but that's not within the wetland boundary, so I didn't think I wanted to waste your time.
Okay.
And I also have to pay an architect in order to do it, so it's kind of.
There's, the
Still, I know you approve it.
easement area isn't,
No,
a
we don't-
huge portion of the property, so
Could work
it
around
seems that you could just adjust your plan and
So-
stay out of that
I
area.
totally get that.
I asked this
Yeah.
question.
I totally get that point. So here's the issue. These trees are at a total loss every year. So it needs to be bigger in order to break even. I put the investment first into this area because if we don't have this area, I can't make the entire thing work. I run the numbers like 8,000 times. So, that's the unfortunate.
Well, that makes me a little uncomfortable because we were just talking about how you weren't doing this for profit and now you're talking about.
No, just not a
Right, but,
loss.
right.
Like, I can't go poor. trying to-
Right, I completely understand that, but I think the other thing is if we're gonna look at what the land can do and what the easement is and the precedent we would set by saying, no, we're gonna allow you to do this because of whatever reason. That now I'm very
Yeah,
uncomfortable.
so an example is if I put an investment into tools and equipment, right?
Right, I
have so
completely
many
understand,
trees in order to-
business I understand and nonprofits I understand, but you're saying both things. You're saying you're willing to do a 403C and you want to do this and you lost all this money on the old farm, but now you're saying I can't pull out of the easement because then I can't break even.
I can,
Meaning I can't make the investments into doing the farm in order
Right,
to
okay.
keep it going.
Right,
Yeah,
okay.
that's what I mean. It's like you have to buy like tools and you have to pay labor.
No,
and-
and I have family that are far, I understand all of that part, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but
Can this commission stipulate what kind of structured, whether it's for profit or nonprofit?
No, we can't do.
No.
under the conservation easement, you could say a not-for-profit organic orchard. I mean, this is a use that you're.
But again, but I'm talking about,
Land decision. It's not as under the inland
I-
wetland statute.
well,
I mean in
Then
the
that's a
future.
question I'll
for
give
future.
our council. I don't think we're qualified to do
Okay,
that.
okay, all right.
So
Yes.
my personal opinion, and it's not an official opinion, it's just my personal opinion. I think it's just, we can regulate the use. Meaning like, can you dig there? Can you not dig there? Whether, can you put a plant there? Can you not? Whether you're a for profit or not for profit, I don't know if we can go that far. You know, that's my only.
And my concern in asking the question is not for your clients, it's for whoever has the property after your clients.
And that's, I mean, again, in terms of, if we're just talking about regulating the use, it can be an organic farm, it can be, you know, in accordance with the plan, it can be limited in those ways, certainly,
Absolutely.
in this context.
But isn't, Mr. Chair, isn't the issue for me is that we would be you're asking us to change and override an easement. I mean, an easement was made, those people aren't here. and, you know,
Not really.
Well, I mean, when you're talking about making this, you know, specific use and stuff, that's where I'm having.
Well, no, but the conservation easement language allows.
It's vague enough. The question is, do commissioners, will majority approve it, or will they not? Or is there restrictions, or how does the commission feel? And then what is our legal,
We would be interpreting,
right, and that's part of like, so
we would have to be having that argument amongst ourselves about.
that's kind of why I read that intent language, that towards the bottom half of the easement. That's the intent. Does that include, okay, now you can forget about it being a business. And a homeowner who is there, who is subservient to state, and these are specific words that have specific definition, and they just plant trees there. Forget about it being an apple tree.
That's what, yeah.
And they even planted trees there. And I'm not sure if that's allowed, unless you come in front of us and commission is us, and we approve it. So this is now going from just planting something to planting a whole bunch of somethings, and then we have a business involved. So I don't, it's almost getting mushrooming to where it might be outside of what we can even do. I don't know, I want
The impact
counsel.
of that use on the area of easement might, you know, impact the fragility of that.
I do appreciate the fact that you had to unfortunately bear the brunt of the cleanup. You might want to go back and talk to somebody about damages, but that, yeah, we have no control of what happened to the commission 10, 20 years ago. But that shouldn't have been there. That should have been cleaned up. All of these things should have happened. Unfortunately, you're the one who had to deal with it. And it's unfortunate.
I would think, again, going back to the comment by Commissioner Fain, rethink the whole thing and how you might incorporate the easement in a way that's consistent with what the wetland is, that can enhance the overall objective of the orchard or the farm. Is there a way that you can come up with a compromise approach to managing this land that would be more acceptable to the commission? Because there's mixed feelings here. I mean, there are things that you're doing that I very much like. And I think there might be ways of using this in a positive light as far as use of the land, encouraging, you know, kids to come see a wetland and the, you know, the toads and the reptiles, and find other ways of turning it into an attract. I'm just thinking out loud.
Well, and just to sort of piggyback on that, some of the things that we encourage applicants to do on their properties, things like pervious pavements and driveways and planting meadows, you know, doing invasive cleanups. There are things that can help to mitigate, from our perspective, anything, you know, and we appreciate all the invasive cleanup that you've done. Unfortunately, it's very difficult for us to say, well, we want to put this land under conservation easement, but you can also go in and clean up the base. We do write that language.
It's kind of in there. I mean, it's not as specific to that. It does allow the maintenance, but as to area B.
As to area B.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it doesn't allow removing vegetation.
Right.
So,
Right.
I mean, I think,
Right, so that's what I'm saying, but I mean, and we do our best to try to define those activities so that people can go in and clean up the invasives, and that's something that we,
Cause it's a conservation purpose. I mean, it benefits,
yes,
yes.
exactly right. So,
You can't remove an invasive and not plant something to replace it, otherwise it's coming right back.
Right.
That's the nature of the beast. And I always ask for people to turn out their lights. Guys compliant. So especially if you're again up against an open area, open space for the nightlife, the night pollinators and the birds, you know, no excess lights, and please no party lights.
You're a very good consultants, and I think you could really come up with a really knockout plan here.
Just want to briefly, because I just heard the P and Z comment. We did submit a request to P and Z. Jim declined to put it on an agenda until the Conservation Commission has acted on it. We did submit the request. They didn't feel it was in their purview to consider it until after conservation has. The language of this easement happens to state that we need approval from the Fairfield Conservation and Town Plan and Zoning Commission. However, they have never in their records acted on a conservation.
Irving is
Is there a way that we could get access to so I could read Sackler and the Taylor case? Because
Absolutely.
I don't have Westland, so.
I can get that for you.
Oh, I'm happy to submit it to the record.
Okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
I'll submit them to
Also the
Tim.
Taylor one?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll
Okay,
submit them
thanks.
to Tim. Absolutely.
And just as an added note, farming in Greenfield Hills and as of right.
Yeah, I
So
was
there
gonna
is not-
say, for purposes of, if these conservation commission, this is again, just for me. If these conservation easements weren't there, have at it.
And that's what was my state of mind at the time, not knowing it. Yeah.
Still need to get
That's
the
exactly
statutory
my
rule.
state of mind at the time.
One step further, Commissioner Hood, this is where you read those cases. I would agree with counsel that even if the activity was done without an application in anticipation of the farming, I think you're fine there too.
Yeah.
So, but for me, it's just the conservation.
Still need to do the corridor ruling otherwise.
Yeah, you would have to.
Violation, but it doesn't convert it to a.
No, it doesn't
Right.
make, you can't, you're still allowed to continue with that activity, but it's still a violation.
And the violation, you could issue a fine.
So as most of the commissioners have said, a bit of a compromise on a wonderful piece of property is a great idea.
We appreciate all the comments and.
That's very helpful.
Thank you very, very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's really not easy.
18th, September 18th.
We still have
Yes,
to have it on the next week, but on another agenda
it's-
tonight.
I don't. Go forward with that, or how do you?
The item for inland wetlands on the agenda, I thought was the consideration of the applicant fee waiver. It wasn't written that way on the agenda, but what we discussed at the August meeting, that on tonight's meeting at an inland wetlands, we would talk about the fee waiver. I don't know if we're prepared to do that.
I think we should just continue all of them.
Yeah.
I agree.
Okay, because I think this needs to be done first.
That's correct. I think that inland wetlands could vote subject to approval by the Conservation Commission.
Pretty dirty way to do it.
Well, let's just continue them.
Yeah.
This one's the Conservation Commission, the legal enforcement action, the way it's on our agenda, that's being continued. The declaratory ruling,
We're not in that meeting yet,
so
so.
we're not there yet, but we can I'll bring it up. Discuss it briefly, and you're saying there's also a fee waiver here? That's
Well, there
just
was the
not
fee
here?
waiver from last time, and the discussion was that we would have that decision at this meeting, because it would be,
Okay,
it relates to the declaratory ruling and the inland wetlands permit, and whether we're going forward with noticing a public hearing for the inland wetlands permit on September 4th.
I'm not. You might be moving too fast, I'm just gonna tell you that. So if you want to hold on for this meeting, which will start shortly,
Yes.
We can.
I
bring
will,
up
we
again,
won't do a full presentation
yeah.
on the declaratory ruling. We'll hold off on that. I'll just,
Discuss the fee waiver and then how it relates to the conservation
Yes.
commission. We gotta take one hat off and put
Yes.
another hat on, okay? Okay. Thank you. All right. Sorry for folks in the back. We were delayed also with technical difficulties, so please. You table back there, Sarah?
here for now.
Okay. Moving on to Roman 9, staff reports from the Conservation Department. So it's gonna be about trail mapping, crew and seasonal staff projects, improvements to 224 Riverview Circle, open space, adopt a street, and sponsors and other miscellaneous. Go for it.
Quickly. Update on the trail mapping and digitalization. The Maps have been completed from Dubois and King, consultant who ties Brent Woods, Lake Mohegan, and Race open spaces. Those are moving to Avenza in the next week or so. Meanwhile, Nicole has been working diligently on our landing places for those on CT Trail Finder. So that is all moving forward. I'll just generalize crew and seasonal. We're in mowing mode and then trail maintenance mode right now, all over the place. 224 Riverview Circle was an open space up against and adjacent to Mill River. That's what happens that it now connects Mill Spa open space with Drake open space. So as of next week, we're on schedule to install a boulder and holly property boundary, some button bush, some swamp whiting, get rid of the manicured lawn and convert that to allow that to grow to meadow up to the riverbank. Briefly, Adopt a Street now has over 18, maybe at 20 sponsors. Signs are all over, and Public Works has been awesome with throughout this process with getting signs on posts very quickly. Do you have anything that you wanna?
Nope, quick
Say?
meeting. Nope.
Okay.
Okay. Moving on to other, I'll just state that I'd like the town attorney to review this, especially with regards to 680. And we had a couple of questions. I guess review the conservation easement. One, can we make the applicant make it a non-profit? I mean, those types of questions about business questions. And then also to what degree can we even, it just says other purposes. Is that a catch-all that we can do anything we want, or is it within the confines of, it says wildlife, natural resource enhancement purposes and other purposes, but is it qualified to be, or, as part of just natural stuff, so I don't know.
Yeah.
I'd like some official kind of determination that we can work off of. Okay. Any other specific questions you guys might want?
I think that's, you pretty mentioned the other, it's a tough one
Yeah.
because, it's the president, it affects a lot of these conservation issues.
That's another thing. I mean,
I'm very concerned.
forget about all of this and this, but.
Are you opening a kettle of
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't.
the precedent of saying that, for commercial use, you can start using your conservation
Or,
easement.
Everybody come in and say, I want to.
I have an abutting property to a conservation, or whatever,
The
and
precedent.
the precedent, I'm all about the precedent.
If we do it right with the precedent, if we do it today,
Yeah, I don't know.
it's a major
So-
bridge, guys. a
Yeah,
Major bridge.
I think
I didn't want to start the discussion with not the right,
Okay.
but I want our town council to kind of give us some background to deal with, okay?
For the 18th,
Yeah, definitely.
September 18th.
Okay, anything else from any other commissioners? Nope. All right, so then this one's closed. Okay.
I'm not turning this off.
Nope, no.
We want you to leave it on until next month.
We want to be out of here by 11. Please do not turn that off. No,
All right.
9:15.
All right, so this is the Conservation Commission acting as the Inland Wetlands Agency special meeting, August 21st, 2024. And I will state for the record, the time on the notice was for 8 PM. It is now a few minutes before 9. We did have a Conservation Commission meeting beforehand, and within that Conservation Commission meeting, we had technical difficulties that pushed us back. So that's just simply for the record. I will take the call again at myself, Lucas Thomas, Daphne Bone, Richard Boucher, Jay Fain, Peter Hood, Cato Mahoney, Ted Luxinger, and Diane Saunders are here. I will now appoint Ted as a full member for this meeting, and then we have a full quorum. There are no draft minute meetings, so we'll go right into Roman numeral 4, which is the public hearing. It's continued. It's WP 24-0051, William Kenny Associates LLC, 1118 Croft Highway, Patterson Club, map 220, parcel 23. Pond dredging, culvert replacements, cart path modifications, plantings, and associated site within the regulated area. Decision may be made if the hearing is completed, the hearing may be continued. The original 35-day public hearing timeframe to complete the hearing ends on September 11, 2024. A 65-day time extension may be provided by the applicant. The further public hearings and continuations to November 15, 2024 are possible. The potential continuation date is September 4th, 2024. If the hearing is completed, the agency shall make a decision within 35 days. Pending receipt of public input, which is the new language we have on our agenda, staff recommends continuing the public hearing pending further review of party of report from third party consultant. Okay, so, sir.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, for the record, my name is Bill Fitzpatrick. I'm an attorney in Fairfield with the law firm of Russo and Rizzio. We have offices at 10 Sasko Hill Road. I'm here tonight representing the Patterson Club, located at 1118 Cross Highway. As the commission is well aware, the club is planning a golf course renovation project, and the first of 2 steps is addressing several ponds and culverts in the westerly portion of the property, which need significant attention. We did have a site visit, and subsequently a public hearing was held before you on August 8th, 2 weeks ago. At the August 8th public hearing, the applicant presented its application. Testimony from Jason Mearsman, the club director of grounds, and Bill Kenny, our environmental expert. That hearing was continued to give the applicant time to respond to the third-party review, which was prepared by GZA at the request of the commission. Third-party review concerns were primarily, in my eyes, technical in nature. The applicant team prepared a written response as well as revised plans. That written response and revised plans were submitted to the Conservation Department a week ago. Revised plans and written response filled in the details as the third-party review requested. In my opinion, the application is now complete. Proposed restoration of the pond and stream system, including the dredging and the replacement of decaying culverts, all result in improved environmental conditions on site, including a reduction in flooding, safer water crossings, and a healthy, free-flowing ecosystem. This afternoon, the Conservation Department received correspondence from GZA, which Tim Bishop was kind enough to forward to me, which stated, in part, I quickly looked at what was sent. It did address the questions that we asked. The PE who evaluated the drainage plan is out on vacation, so that did not get reviewed. At this point, I'm asking the commission to act on this application, preferably tonight. I think it's very unlikely that there are any unanswered engineering issues remaining, since our PE responded to the very issues raised by GZA's PE. In the event there are any technical engineering details to work out, I think they can be ironed out with the conservation staff. This application has been thoroughly vetted. It addresses the siltation and plant growth in the ponds in question and the deteriorating culverts in a comprehensive, professional manner. For these reasons, I'd request this application be approved. Mr. Kenny is here with me. Mr. DeMayo, our project engineer, is here on Zoom. Mr. Nazaro, the dredging contractor, Ross Nazaro, is here on Zoom as well. Jason Mearsman was trying to get on Zoom, but he's on family vacation in Maine, so I gave him an excuse. We'd be happy to answer any questions the commission may have.
I recall at the last meeting, we went right almost, I almost forgot that we continued it. It was my fault. Commissioner Fain had a great suggestion, and I'll just ask the applicant of that. If it's simply technical, and you too, Sarah, if it's simply technical things on engineering that you guys can figure out, I think we can approve it if we vote that way with the caveat or the condition that as long as the technical things get hammered out to the satisfaction of the staff.
Right.
You good with that?
Absolutely.
Okay. Any further questions or comments to their, okay, so I motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Anybody second? Dabney. So is Commissioner Fain and Dabney second. All in favor? Aye. Any discussion? Any motion to approve with Commissioner
That we
approve?
with the caveat that any technical details are worked out between the applicant and staff.
Okay,
Just
any
wanted to add
second?
a couple conditions,
Oh,
if we could, if we have a discussion.
Conditions, so you want to amend his motion?
I want to amend it.
Okay. Go for it.
And I don't know if I need to, because I just don't have the staff report. And I'll
Oh,
ask
has it
Sarah.
been seconded? Has it been seconded yet? No.
Yeah.
Anybody willing to second? Okay, Commissioner Hood seconds now. Okay, Commissioner.
Okay,
Fain,
I just
sorry.
want to ask Sarah, I just want to make sure that it's not the usual once a month or once a week inspection. I want to make sure that inspections are done as necessary and during the pond dredging.
Yeah, I think we
maybe,
did that same.
every
thing
other,
during
you
the
know,
pond Dredging at Dogwood Green, where it was during certain times. They were there sometimes daily, sometimes more, or not more than daily, but
Could that be falling under technical?
I can find the link.
I just want to make sure that it's covered, that's all.
Are you,
That makes
are
sense.
you,
Objection.
okay, so for the record, the motion will be along with the technical, the timing of the site dredging monitors and all that.
We're talking about the environmental site monitor.
Yeah, environmental same, I just don't want, you know, if it needs to do once a day or once a week, whatever needs to be done.
Understood.
Okay, so. All right, so there's a motion to approve with the application with the condition that any technical details be hammered out with the staff to their approval, and then the site monitor to be as required. Okay, and Commissioner Boucher seconds that, which was Commissioner Fain's amendment to that motion. You guys got that?
And Tim and Sarah, you're comfortable with that language?
Yes.
Right.
And I just want to point out that Dustin from GZA is on screen as well.
Yeah, but
We're late for
he had that statement that it's
That's
the
fine.
engineer.
I just wanted to make it-
Okay, right, he's on vacation. All in favor? Aye, I think it's all around. Okay, very good. Congrats, good luck. And again, I'd like to state that your presentation, as you guys are doing at that golf course, is really top notch. I'm really happy to see it. Yeah, okay, thank you. All right. So this is a special meeting, so we're moving on to, there's no application for receipt, we have 6 application for discussion. That one continued declaratory NK 2024 Family Home LLC 680 Old Academy Road, map 171 parcel 9 A. Just establishing organic orchard within a regulated area. staff recommends tabling pending departmental review, and we also had a previous meeting of the Conservation Commission that had to deal with conservation easements. So even though they're two separate things, they kind of going along together. It's not on our agenda, but I'm told that there is a fee waiver application. Is that correct, Tim?
We did submit one, but I don't know if there's still question as to whether or not they need the permit, if we should be discussing a fee waiver.
Gotcha. Council, I'll let you make some statements and then we'll see where we're.
Sarah Sharp, 125 Broad Street, the owner MK 2024 Family Home LLC. At the August 7th meeting, what we had discussed was that the application for fee waiver might be considered tonight. It was continued from the application, from the meeting where the inland wetlands permit application was received, because the basis for the fee waiver request was the fact that these were exempt activities performed in preparation for agricultural use, and that led to the preparation and submission of the memo, which we did. And because that's the basis, and because your town attorney is still waiting to weigh in on that, I'm assuming that we won't be prepared to act on that tonight. Like I said, the basis is that the activities were conducted in preparation for farming, and that the fact that that was done without an advanced declaratory ruling under the case law doesn't convert it into an activity that requires a permit.
Gotcha. Thank you for bringing me up to speed with that summary. And then I'll continue by saying I agree with that. However, we have the conservation easement aspect of it, which wouldn't, in my opinion, might not make it as of right, because it's so a regulated activity under the conservation easement language.
I'm happy to address that at the next meeting. The conservation easement, a violation of the conservation easement, there's no basis in the case law to say that that is something that requires an inland wetlands permit. I think that they are separate issues. If there's a violation of the conservation easement, the enforcement and the action, I think that would be to Superior Court. It doesn't convert a permitted use into a use that requires an inland wetlands permit unless there's another regulated use that would require an inland wetland permit otherwise. So happy to address that in further detail and follow.
And that would be another question now for our council. So these are the things, that's why I wanted to do this, to review the record. So I think they're obviously separate issues. One is an inland wetlands issue, one is a conservation commission issue.
Property rights versus zoning.
And we gotta, I think we need to get more information as a board, as a commission, to be able to make these decisions. So I thank you for being here and accommodating us, but I think all of it will be continued, like allowing our council time to review it, and then we can discuss it again. Let's see. For the wetlands won't be until after the Conservation Commission meeting, so this should be continued until the October meeting.
Just the town council had sent a letter that he would be available on September 4th, so.
Yeah, September 4th is, but I don't wanna discuss this until I think the Conservation Commission will be dealt with first. That's how I feel.
Would it be possible for this item to be considered at a special meeting of the inland wetlands on that September 18th? And assuming we can get the town attorney to be present, because he hasn't committed to that under his schedule. So I just want to, if that would be a possibility, we'd be here anyway. We could do it all in one night. And it's a lot of overlap, so.
It's a lot. I'm not sure. No, I don't want to do that. I want to take our time because there's a lot of questions here. I'm sorry. There's been other meetings where almost always on the same page, or maybe one or two are an outlier. There's a lot of different competing just within the commissioners here on this. I understand that you want your clients, they want speed, but I think this is too important for commission itself on both hats that it wears and any possible future effects that our district might have on future applicants. So
I'm just hesitant because the town attorney, I just want to, like, if his, I guess. we'll
I think
make
he's
sure
just summer
available.
vacation. He will be.
Okay, September is better than August, yeah.
He's always around.
Okay.
It just happened that.
It's
you know,
vacation season.
Yeah, right. So,
Understood,
thank you, council, for.
understood. Thank you. And thank you for your time.
Thank you.
So for the record, can we just, this will be continued to September 18th? And the Conservation Commission is. This is going to continue to October 8th,
10-2.
Yes.
October
I'm
2nd.
sorry,
9.
10-9.
And 9, yes, and 9.
I put down the wrong date last time, so I.
You still made it here though, so
You
that's.
went on a sidewalk.
Yes, you did.
Don't worry about it, it's fine.
Summer, it's the summer, I don't know.
The secret sidewalk.
I know, I was like, the pictures on a white, I'm like, did you go?
Thanks, council.
Do it.
Like no bills or bond release camera. Legal enforcement action, nope. And staff reports, CWC permit applications received 3. Notice of violation issued 0, that's nice. Bonds released 1.
That's only 2 weeks.
It's only half the month.
Right. Number 2, department outreach flyer.
That looked great.
Yeah, it looks
I
great.
thought it looked fantastic.
Sure.
Thank you.
And very clarifying.
I give all the credit to Nicole, who's no longer,
Good job, Nicole.
in this
Correct.
meeting,
Yeah.
but-
And that's gonna be in a stand at the building desk?
The intent is to get it in the hands of attorneys and real estate agents.
That I think is
Nice.
excellent.
Nice.
Push the message of calling the department before they do things.
Okay.
Give it to me. I have a whole bunch of real estate agents I deal with, so
Great.
I'll
Yeah, for sure.
go and see them, coffee and the flyers.
It's on our homepage, but that was the initial initial
Very
intent, and to
nice.
keep it one page, simple.
And maybe even post them at like outdoor design and places like that and like let people know like before you start projects.
Can I post it on social media for?
Sure, absolutely. I could either email you a PDF or it's on our home center news.
I'll post it to Pond Leader Pathway.
Yep.
About
Yeah.
600 followers there, so.
Good.
Okay.
All right, and the next agency meeting, September 4th, 2024. We're gonna do it. That's wonderful. All right, anything else, commissioners?
Thank you.
All right. Well done.